Welcome to the Pom in Oz show with my good friend, your friend and mine, my favourite West Ham fan, Big Fazz in the house. Look, he's all in claret as well.
Hey, Pommy. Good to be here. Yes, I thought different attire this week because I couldn't be going around in the Carlton stuff after a disappointing loss. So I thought West Ham haven't let me down this week, so just went with the West Ham attire, and it's actually the holiday attire too because I am still on holidays, which is fantastic.
Because the West Ham haven't let you down, namely because they're on pre-season. So I mean,
yep. You'd be surprised.
You'd be surprised. Rangers under 21s beat Patrick Thistle this week in their first pre-season game, so I'm on a high. Well, I mean, obviously we've got a lot to talk about. We've got all sorts of agendas. So, guys and girls, as you flood in, get your questions in because we've got a new question segment, so you can grill me and Fazz. But for us all to discuss first, this is a hot topic. Do fixtures in the AFL actually affect the ladder?
Well, I have thought long and hard about this, and I'd like to preface by saying, before I go into it, I do believe that most of the time that the best team ends up winning the flag anyway, right? So I just want to preface by saying that. But absolutely 100% the fixture affects the ladder. 100%. The name, it's in the name, fixed. F-I-X-T, it's fixed. It definitely affects the ladder. Now, people talk about this season that it's a season like no other and it's so tight because of the top 8. But I look at it at the bottom. The bottom 4 teams stink. Like, we're talking North Melbourne will probably finish the season on 1 win. And they were lucky to get that only because the other bottom team stunk just as much. And I just looked at last year's ladder just quickly, and it was like 2021, the bottom 4 teams were, fourth last was 7 wins, third last was 7 wins, second last was 6 wins, and bottom were 4.5 wins, plus a percentage between 85 to 70%. These 4 teams are getting nowhere near that this year. So yes, the fixture is going to be dictated by who gets to play those bottom teams twice. However, we've already spoken about Geelong. They will definitely finish top because they've got to play West Coast and North twice. The one thing I will say, though, like I said, best team usually wins the flag. And I do believe that teams get found out. There may be a fraudulent team that sneaks into finals, but they will get found out. Essendon last year, they always get found out.
Mate, I think it's a good call because if you go through the pre-season time, and Champs Data work their algorithm on degree of difficulty. So the hardest difficulty at the start of the year, based on their mythical system, was the doggies. Now, if you actually go through the bookies had them second favourites.
Yep.
4 out of 12 tipsters in the AFL pundits had them winning the flag. Currently, the doggies are 10th, and they're a game out of the finals. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it leads us, keep the doggies in mind as well, because some of you here, as Patrick says, has been fixed since the death of VFL. Do you know what I mean? Geelong, we know they're playing, they've had 2 of the best double-ups in the history of the game, haven't they? Do you know what I mean, this year? Do you know what I mean? They have North at peak moments.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the other points I wrote down was what looks like a hard or easy fixture at the start of the year, like you just said, doesn't necessarily mean it's hard. West Coast finished 9th last year, and now they're a basket case. So they I believe the fixture split into the 3 groups of 6, and that's how they dictate who plays who multiple times. But you're right, the doggies, West Coast, even Port Adelaide early on in the year, Port Adelaide, they finished pretty high up, and they played in a prelim last year. And for the first 5 rounds, you'd be saying, geez, I wish we were playing Port Adelaide. So yeah, it moves on, it moves forward, and you think, gee, you'd love to have got Port Adelaide twice, or the doggies twice, or West Coast twice. If you said that this time last year, you'd look like a madman. And it'll change again next year. Collingwood's another example. They finished second last on 6 wins last year. Now they're in the finals. Do you want to play them twice? I don't know.
Mate, it's spot on, and it's interesting because if you did the fixtures at the start of the year using their algorithm, Carlton's was the 16th hardest, so second easiest, tied. If you do it based on how teams have played this year, Carlton's is 9th hardest. So there's the fluctuation from pre-season expectation based on last season to now. Now, Bugspell's got an idea here, which I don't mind. 17-round season, then final 5 rounds. Oh, he's gone the Scotland method, the split. 6 teams, 1 to 6, play each other in their groups to determine the finishing positions, 22 rounds. I like it. I like it. I was going to say there's 2 things I think. These are my suggestions. And you guys and girls, throw them out in the chat. And Fazz, I'll let you think of it while I discuss mine. I think it should be 17 rounds, right? And that's one way. Everyone plays each other once, rotating roster, home 1 year, away next year. Make it fair until we can get a 2-game season, which I don't think will ever happen because Dangerfield cries about playing 23. Imagine if you ask him to play 38. But the other suggestion I've got is keep it the way it is, but instead of it being so secretive and they've got a fixture committee, why don't they do it as a draw? So the 18 teams, obviously you're going to play once, 17. The remaining 6 fixtures, why don't you bung them names into a hat? And that's how you get the double up. So it's random, it's generated, we never know. And you can't say you've fixed the draw because it does seem that some teams have been dipped in this, especially when you go to the start of the year and you look at the 2 odds-on favourites from the bookies to be bottom 2. Adelaide, they had the second easiest draw, and North Melbourne were another team that was predicted to absolutely tank. They had the 12th easiest draw. So it makes no sense that the 2 teams expected to be rubbish. Actually, one of them's got one of the hardest draws in the league.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no perfect system. The one that was said before about the 17 rounds and then the final 5 rounds split into 3 groups, I like it. The only issue I have with that one is you'll end up with a fraudulent top 8 because the team who finishes 13th will win more games than the team currently sitting 13th will win more games than the team currently sitting 6th because they have to play the top 5 teams, or the team finishing 13th gets to play the bottom 5, which means you would see the team 13th jump into the top 8. Does that make sense? So the 8th team would be fraudulent because they'd got to play all the easy teams in the last 5 rounds. So I get it, but I don't think you can have a system where the bottom teams play each other halfway through the season because you have a team. The Doggies are a perfect example. If they got to have their final 5 games all against the bottom teams, they make finals like that. Simple. A team like, say, Collingwood or Carlton, even or Sydney, who are sitting in the top 8 right now, if they had to play all the top 5 teams, they drop out. So it's so you create that fraudulent person. For me, I like the idea of 17 rounds. They're never, ever going to change it based on money. So, you'll always have Carlton and Collingwood playing each other twice, Carlton, Richmond, so on. How to work it out at the end, I like the idea of a draw, of just a, randomized draw. But you know what? I'm going to be blunt. I like the idea of just sticking it to 17 games, saying bang, 17, and just you could be, I know a lot of people might not like that idea, but if you want to make it fair, 17 games, that's all. Do your state of origin or whatever, do your whatever you want to do, but just go bang, get it done. Kind of like the American Football League. If you're going to bring in 2 other teams to get it to 20, bang, then it's 19 games or whatever. So, yeah. As soon as you start fiddling around with who plays it twice and all that, then it just becomes, it becomes fixed. Like your idea with the draw, fantastic idea. But then you're just like, it's just a matter of luck. You could be having the best season you've ever had, and then all of a sudden you get drawn against it's still going to be a bit messy. That's all.
No, I agree with you. I mean, it is something, though, I think that the other option, I don't know what the chat think about this, because it's so hidden away. I think it makes no rhyme or reason. So, like, my point here, big point with the fixtures, is North Melbourne were a lock to be 18th or 17th. How is their degree of difficulty at the start of the season, based on where teams were, the same position as, why do I like pointed out, where Carlton finished?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the same level of difficulty as Richmond. So let that think in. Many people had Richmond winning the flag this year. Few of the pundits, 2 of them tipped them. How could you, if you're making a draw, say that the draw's meant to favour the worst sides to keep the balance in the league? How could you say that, but then Richmond has the same difficulty in their draw, as per Champs data, which the AFL use for everything, as North Melbourne? It makes that's where I draw the issue. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't, and I agree. Why is it so secret? But what we're sitting in a situation right now where it's going to be a percentage booster. You know, I'd love to come season's end if we just did the teams who, it's not just sneaking into top 8. I mean, I genuinely believe Geelong will finish top simply because of their fixture. That's home finals. That's extra money. That's all this stuff, all based around because they get percentage boosters against North and West Coast twice. And you can argue, and I'll agree, because I had this conversation on Twitter. Someone said, well, the fixture's made in October. You couldn't account for West Coast being shit. And I get that, but it's still dictating. The question is, does the fixture dictate the ladder? Absolutely, it does. 100%.
You know, the last option I'll throw out there is a 5-year ladder. So what you do is you do the fixtures for 5 years in advance. And that way you say, look, there's no way we can manipulate it. So obviously the AFL, if you're going to have a 22-round season, 22-game season each team, you've got to have your Richmond, like Bugs Bell set. Like, I love Bugs Bell's idea as well, because I'm a Scotland fan. So we split up. And personally, I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's great, especially if you did it in a way that the bottom teams are still fighting for something. So I would have maybe a prize for winning that pool. So like in the SPFL, they're playing not to be relegated. That's their prize. Suddenly they get an easier draw so they cannot get relegated. You don't have to play your Celtic and Rangers.
And I like that. And what you're saying here, group 7 to 12 are fighting for bottom 2. I love that, because that's what's happening right now. But my question is, the team that's sitting 13th at this point in time, if they're 2 games out of the 8, do you know what I mean? Like,
would I be right, Bugs Bell, that you have what we have in the SPFL, where it's actually banned? So when we split up, if it was mathematically possible for 10th to finish first, they can't. They can never go above the cutoff. So maybe if you split it between 12 teams, because statistically, by round 18, only 12 teams genuinely can qualify, and the bottom 6 can't. Would you have it that way? Oh, he's validated it. Mate, I love that.
Yeah. Then you know, if that's the case, then I'll put my hand up. I'm all for that. I am all for that. That you wouldn't have any fraudulent spots. Yeah,
because
I'm all for
it. Why I like that as well, and this is one of my suggestions, is you find in Scotland, your teams like West Coast now, because they've got nothing to play for, will play North maybe 4 times, because we have 4 games. We have 2 additional games.
Yeah.
They would now start playing their under 18s, under 19s, play the next year's players now, give them 6 games against the worst sides, rest the senior players, knowing that they've got 6 games into them to see where they're at. And it doesn't really fucking matter. They're not going to lose by 200 to Melbourne by doing that. They're going to play another team that's shit.
I love it. And even Bugswell just said down below, each team can't move out of their group. I love it.
Mate.
Just like, Gil, it's Fazz. All right. We've fixed your problem. All right. Yep. Cool. Call me back.
Gil, fuck off. You've got Bugs Bell now, mate.
Awesome.
Cheers, mate.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Bugs Bell. That's awesome.
It is a new camera and it is new hat. Now, to answer Jeff's question, why I like the 17, and I agree, I think the Americans do it very, very, very very, very secretive squirrel as well. But the Americans are too dumb to complain about it. But what I like about 17 is it gives you an additional 5 weeks. So if anyone watches the Pom and Oz video with me being CEO, you can now bring in more revenue. So I suggested things like the mid-season draft, play a mid-season interstate game because it's capped at 60 players to enter the mid-season draft. So you could have 30 on 30 the week before the draft, play it at the G on live TV. We all watch it because we're like, oh, who is this kid? What is this kid about? You could also, in that 2-week bye, play the under 18s, have a big state. I suggested the state of origin comeback for the next year's draft and get really excited about it. Marquee events at Perth, at Northern Territories, see it, get really excited about it. So I think you could build revenue a lot more smarter. And you know what the Americans are like? The Americans froth novelty, and that would be a novelty to sell to them.
And look, I think they're wonderful conversations. But at the end of the day, I think I go back to what I said at the start. 9 times out of 10, the best team wins the flag at the end of the year anyway. And it just becomes a final series of when these teams get knocked out. So I think it's not necessarily completely broken because the best team wins the flag, but you want to give yourself the best chance you can, especially with some interstate teams in the finals. You don't want to get stuck having to go to Brisbane or Fremantle just because of their fixture. So yeah, but it's a wonderful conversation. And I've actually found that whether you go for Carlton or Collingwood or whether you hate whoever, this conversation actually brings everyone together because we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I do think the AFL need to clarify a lot of things, though. There's a lot of rules I think the AFL need to clarify, particularly the model for free agency players. But that's probably a conversation for next week.
Yeah, write that one down.
I actually relatively know the algorithm, and it is so fucking not complicated. But it has a complication because it involves salary of that player, which again isn't public knowledge. So you could manipulate that. It looks manipulated. Maribor Chol is a great example because he got a very high comp pick because Richmond were paying him a lot of fucking money. But it's a bizarre thing. But the next segment, similar theme, and I know a lot of you do it. And can I just say, I know a lot of people on Twitter have criticized people for doing ladder predictors. Uncle Pom says fuck them because Uncle Pom does a ladder predictor probably every quarter of a game that Carlton aren't playing. I'm like, fuck, Geelong are cooked. Let's have them losing every game from now. So I love them. But what are your thoughts? Are they a good thing or are they a bad thing?
Ladder predictors, they're kind of like that sneaky, what do you call it? When the wife says no more potato chips, but you buy a sneaky pack of potato chips on the way home from work. They're kind of like that. You do it secretly, but you don't ever want to admit you do them. I enjoy them, but I can tell you now, they're the biggest load of crap. Because put your hand up if you get 9 tips a week right every week. You don't. No one does. If ladder predictors were actually legit, people would be billionaires from gambling because you'd never, you think you get it right. They're usually only used, in my opinion, to either calm yourself down or stress yourself out even more. So you think, oh no, Carlton can't make the finals. I'll do a ladder prediction. Oh, we can make it. Excellent. Or, geez, I think we're going to drop out. Oh my God, we can drop out. And then it's panic stations. But the one thing I will say, if I see one more person send me, and I get them sent all the time, send me a ladder predictor with us missing finals on 13 wins, I won't block you, but I won't even reply because you're not missing finals on 13 wins. I can tell you that right now. We win 13 games. Whoever wins 13 games, you are playing finals, right? But I've seen that many, the top 8 with 8 with 15, 14 wins. It's not going to happen.
Can I just say that the person will remain nameless, but he's a very good friend of mine, and I have a lot of football respect for him. But 2 weeks ago to this day, he actually sent me a ladder predictor with 7 teams on 15 wins. And,
Yeah.
and my reply, I will read it out because that will give it away who it is. I was like, lay off the Sambuca, you pisshead. Was legit my response. But I'm going to put it out there. I love ladder predictors, and I think the AFL sometimes I think they push fans away from having a go. So there's quite a lot of, I think, influential media pages, professional and not professional, who put fans down for doing it. And as a man that loves stats and produces stat-based content, I fucking get my dick out when someone sends me anything stat-based, even if it's not good maths. If you've had a crack, I love it because I'm like, enjoy the game. And round ball, it's about being infectious. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if you're sponsored by Coca-Cola, you only drink Coca-Cola, you don't drink Pepsi. It becomes a thing, you indoctrinated it. I love it, but I do want to get a bit practical about the ladder predictors because we are Carlton biased, right? Now, if you actually break down the ladder, Carlton are the only side with their remaining fixtures who play two teams that are mathematically can't, two and a half. GWS can, but two teams that can't mathematically play finals. Right now, statistically speaking, the most dangerous games in this, and a staggering 82% of teams that have missed finals from this stage, from 6th and above, have lost to teams between 9 and 12. Right? So that is technically your danger because genuinely every game's a grand final for them at this stage. Now, Carlton dodge the worst team in the comp for this because I think the Doggies and St Kilda, who played us, and Gold Coast Suns and Port are going to fuck teams. Yeah. And luckily, they play all the teams around us. Do you know what I mean? All the teams around us. So what I'm saying is statistically, Carlton have got technically their run home to finals. I did the calculations. If you actually do it based on percentage. So what I've done is created an algorithm on percentage. Now, there's two reasons why. People in the chat who don't believe are going to go, oh, but Pom, shit percentage, kid. Shit percentage. It bites you in the comp. So what I've done is I've taken your argument, taken it, right? Because I'm a good boy. Carlton's, if you actually go percentage versus percentage, Carlton would be projected from this point, 14 wins, finish 6th, and it is the 11th hardest run home in the league.
Look, Carlton are playing finals. Carlton are playing finals. I don't know how many times. It's just, I get it, you know, but we're playing finals. It's as simple as that. Like, and as far as ladder predictors go, I will say with the round ball, ladder predictors are like, they've got that added extra element into it with the draw because there's a lot of draws. But yeah, look, I enjoy them. I'll be honest. I the last couple of weeks at the end of the round, I've done a ladder predictor just to see what happens that round, for example. But no, look, I mean, we're playing finals. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. In fact, I will go say I will donate $100 to a charity of your choice if Carlton do not play finals.
Well, Ben Linton, quality gentleman in the chat. I'm scrolling up to find your comment, but he actually suggested he would eat Luke Sindon said he was going to eat my hat. So I'll buy another hat and me and Luke on a live will eat the hats together. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say is that obviously if you do it on the percentage, which isn't a perfect way, but it is a good way to do because genuinely speaking, you would make a huge profit if you bet based on percentage. You make a big profit. There's obviously anomalies to the rule. There's obviously anomalies. It's not about, like Michael saying, don't get too cocky, anything can happen, and that's a scary thought. Spot on, it can. But genuinely, there is stats you can look at to give you an indication, and that is a big one, percentage at this point. But probably the biggest point I want to make is I do an algorithm called TPI, and that is based really heavily on matchups and teams that you play against each other. positional matchups, historical data over the last 5 games, and stuff like that. Carlton are predicted on that measurement, and bearing in mind we were 55% predicted to lose last week to St Kilda. TPI didn't like Carlton versus St Kilda. We actually finish on 15 wins based on that. So that is an important one.
I love your maths and everything. And to Michael in his response, don't get too. I agree. Like anything can happen. Obviously, the touch wood, but any players can fall down left, right, and center. Anything can happen. I agree. But by pure, if simply it just goes the same way as what the season's gone, we play finals. It's as simple as that. Like something seriously wrong has to happen, which could happen. I get it, but I'm pumped.
You know what though? Like obviously, ladder predictors. To finish with that, they're a bit like seeing your sister-in-law sunbathe. You probably shouldn't look, but you do anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Jack, Boris Johnson faces Prime Minister's question at 9 p.m. Can you predict how that go? I reckon a little bit to use the sister-in-law sunbathing comment. Probably about as well when your wife catches you looking. Probably about as well as that. But exactly like Bugs Bell says, he's been spot on tonight, nailed it. And I'm looking forward. I know there's a few Pies fans in chat, good friends of mine and friends of the channel. I can't wait to play them in a final. That is what I'm excited about.
Mate, it'd be huge.
And the fans will like this one because we've got a bit of a piss take one here. So VFL, Essendon won the VFLW against St Kilda Girls. Does that count as breaking the finals, Doc?
Oh dear, I saw it on Twitter, and that famous page that we all love, the day since Essendon won a finals page, had been inundated by a few Essendon supporters saying that this breaks their duck. Sorry, VFLW grand final does not break the finals drought, unfortunately for them. Simple.
I'm not counting it.
Yeah,
I'm not counting it either. I mean, I'm not counting it, but it does lead. I tagged onto that. The AFLW fixture. Another one now, they've got 17 teams, but still teams don't play one each other once, which is an insane bit of banter, is it not?
It's crazy. I did see a stat that Carlton AFLW have never played West Coast, and they don't play them again this coming season. So I find that to be quite fascinating.
Yeah, I think Collingwood have never played Gold Coast as well. It's a bizarre world.
It is, and I think the give the Dons a chop out. Nah, they can go and get. Although, actually, I will say this off topic. I was very happy with Essendon's win against Sydney. So thank you, Essendon. Always doing Carlton a favour. Really appreciate it.
You know what? Interesting as well. If they do us a favour again and beat Brisbane, Carlton will be tied on second point should they win this week. It's tied on second. So, Mitch, get your boys up this week and we'll banter with you the week after.
I'll buy an Essendon membership, Mitch.
And we'll donate it to someone homeless so they've got two problems.
Yeah, but back to the AFLW. Look, this is a really difficult thing for me to talk about because it upsets me. I'm quite emotional when it comes to the Carlton's AFLW team at the moment. I still haven't got over what's happened with not just with the players that left, but how they worked out a system that we lost 4 of our best players pretty much and had our first pick in the teens. I don't understand the system. I don't get it. Virtually, we got punished for being one of the first clubs to do it, and the teams who didn't want to do it at the start are now getting rewarded. But anyway, as far as the fixture goes, again, it's just an anomaly that they've got. The conference system, I think, worked in our favour a few years ago when we Carlton finished top of their conference, but was like the 4th ranked team overall, but still got to finish the top of their conference. So I don't mind that regard. But yeah, look, I will say it is a bit of a touchy thing for me, the AFLW at the moment. So I haven't got over it.
I've got to say, we talk about the fixture list, and like Bugs Bell says here, the AFL is the most unprofessional professional sport in the world. It's all secret squirrel, and I do think, what is weird, the AFLW kind of really gets punished by the AFL because somehow they have a new competition and they manage to fuck that up even more than the competition that is steeped in history and lineage, which is bizarre to me.
Yeah, I've got daughters, and one of the biggest target groups that the AFL are trying to target is young girls and young women to play sport. I mean, and you've just basically you've just torn the fabric out of a football club, and we're not the only ones. It happened to other clubs, but I feel like we got hit the hardest. I wouldn't go as far as saying that you could have lost a big chunk of girls simply just like that, just because of it.
And, mate, I agree with you, and I think following the men's game, you always are heartbroken when a player leaves, aren't you?
Of course.
When a player, even as a full-grown man, do you know what I mean? The wonderful. We'll come on to that. Tell you what, we'll switch to this as well while I use this, because the conspiracy theories. Because we've got that wonderful trade news and rumours. And to use my point, he's just posted Charlie Curno's requesting a trade to Geelong. Now, as you know, let me just reach out and get him. Charlie is my favourite player. You know what I mean? So if Charlie was to ever leave me, I'd be broken. And the conspiracy theories, what do you think, Fazz? And what does chat think? Does anyone else think AFL is the biggest fan base of absolute tinfoil hat wearers? Like, and I'll give an example. Do you remember when Dimmer had the affair on his wife, and that them texts were going around going, "Don't say I told you, mate, but I've heard that bikies are coming round collecting drug debts off Dimmer." And then this year, we've had, tell you what, the AFL have got a big cover-up at the moment. There's bikies coming round to North Melbourne. And then there was bikies coming round to Goodwin because he wanted gone to handball at the Queen's birthday game to get out of his drug debts. Like, why is the AFL, every rumour can never be anything like, oh yeah, Melbourne are fucked because they're bottom of the ladder. 18th Melbourne, North Melbourne, the bottom of the ladder, they're absolutely cooked. There's problems there. It always has an extra element of conspiracy. What do you guys think in chat, and what do you think?
Conspiracy theories, it's what it's pretty much what keeps Twitter alive. Because basically every person knows someone, and hey, you didn't hear it from me, but and it's just the bikies one fascinates me to no end, because I feel like people have just watched too much Underbelly and think that the bikies are heavily involved in everything, which is fine. But it's just crazy. The conspiracy, but the one conspiracy theory that I think every AFL supporter, for every club has, and that is that the AFL hates us or the umpires hate us. There is a large section of supporters who genuinely believe that the umpires are out there fixing games because they hate their club, or the AFL wants certain teams to win or lose because they hate their club. It absolutely blows my mind. Those conspiracy theories about umpires and AFL hating them. Keep it going.
It's funny because I've got a Pies mate and a Richmond mate, and my Richmond mate and the Pies mate, my Pies mate was reckoning that there was the close games Collingwood have had recently are due to umpire bias because they don't want the Pies to finish in the 8 because, and I quote, we had a few racism scandals at the start of the year. And it was the way he said a few racism scandals. I'm like, fucking hell. Jesus, that's a big call, bro. Just a few. But then my Richmond mate fired up this morning with a post of the free kick differential. And they're the ones who were hardest hit this year. And was like, They don't want Richmond there. They don't want us. They want Ninthman back. It sells papers. And I was like to him, guys, you do realise the AFL is hemorrhaging money. The best case scenario for them is Richmond, Carlton and Pies are in the final. Like, if anything, they would be telling the umpires, give everything to them. Give everything to them. 50s, goals, everything.
Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate that. But no, as
that's true. I can confirm that isn't a conspiracy theory. That is true, Mitch.
Absolute facts. No, but the Richmond one makes me laugh. That Richmond, we're on the bottom for free kick differential. How about you get a contested ball? You absolute flops. You know, maybe that's why you're on the bottom for free kick differential. You haven't won a centre clearance for bloody 5 years. Yes, you've won flags, but that's why you're on the bottom. You get free kicks because teams get free kicks when they go in hard. Simple as that. Toughen up,
Mate,
Richmond.
It's funny that genuinely as well, if you look at the free kick differential, I think the top 6 are in the top 10. So genuinely that happens every year. Good teams get paid free kicks because they're attacking and the other team are defending for their fucking dear lives. Do you know what I mean? The other conspiracy theory I want to address is when their favourite player as well doesn't get picked, right? Because all year I've had messages like Voss hates Dow. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Voss hates Dow. There's a conspiracy theory, even though there is an actual football reason. But my favourite one I got a couple of weeks ago on Twitter was the reason Stocker didn't play against St Kilda is because Voss is done with him and will trade him imminently. And then this morning the club come out and said, oh yeah, we're just about to finalise his contract. Like literally, we just can't be like, oh, you know what? Voss just doesn't think he's ready to play yet. It has to be a reason. Like I had some comments at the start of the year when Dow wasn't selected in the first opening rounds that evidently Dow had spat his dummy, refused to train while the club were posting pictures of him at training.
Yeah, no, it couldn't just be as simple as Stocker didn't play because Voss doesn't trust his kicking, or it couldn't be as simple as Dow doesn't play because, you know what, he doesn't do what Voss needs in the centre. It has to be that, oh, no, there's been a big falling out there, or there's always a football reason. And it always has to be a conspiracy, you know.
Yeah. You see, Ben's nailed it here. Do you know what I mean? Like these literally though are the classic ones we got. These are classic. But the problem is, Ben, we know you're taking the piss, but the problem is we all have that mate as well, and God love him. I love my mate. Big Matty does it to me, messages me, oh, Pom. Spoke to one of my mates, and as you know, his mum's the cleaner at St Kilda, and she overheard XYZ story. It's one of my, and he's my favourite mate. He's my mate because these stories do amuse me implicitly because I'm him, fucking hell, mate, become an author because these are better than some of the movies that get Oscar nominated.
Yeah, and the reality is, you know, we all know people in and around clubs and stuff like that. Just think about for a moment the people you work with, right? Everyone think about the people you work with. How much do you actually know about their personal lives and what's going on in their lives and whether their wife's sleeping with this person, or how much do you actually know? It's no different at a footy club. They are colleagues. They're not like spending each and every moment. Like, so, oh, you know, my grandfather's the boot starter he doesn't just clean someone's boots and all of a sudden like, hey, did you know that his wife's sleeping with her? Like, what the hell?
I've got to say, it's not just Carlton fans, because St Kilda fans are just as good as well. I've got a few good St Kilda mates, and some of the rippers they told me when Jack Stephen left were some of the best stories I've had. Like everything from interpersonal relationships, or my personal favourite was Rowan Marshall went to get a bag, go into Jack Stephen's bag so he could have a towel for in the shower. And he went in the wrong bag and there was meth in the bag. And I'm like, why would he fill a sports bag full of meth and come into training? You know what I mean? Like, they are really good. So honestly, if you're the kind of person that spreads the rumours, keep doing it because it gives me a good laugh, I've got to say. But But it is good. I've got to say as well, just on this topic as well, where would we be without them? Where would we be without them as a fraternity?
No, nowhere. It's simple as that. 90% of my conversations with people are that. Hey, did you see this? Did you hear that? A screenshot or something.
I've got to say, show of hands as well, when someone tells you a rumour about another club, who then passes it on to their mate as gospel because they support that team. I have to say, I double ratify every story about an opposition team. Going, mate, you know it's mustard as well, because I'm on Blue Abroad all the time. My ears to the ground. This is coming from a reliable source. And just watch my mate erupt in a private chat. Going, what's going on at my club?
How good is it? How good is it? Richmond fans are good to get like that. I work with a Richmond mate, and I wouldn't say mate, a Richmond guy, and yeah, I love dishing out some Richmond stuff, and the immediate way to either justify it. That's what I love, is when there's some god awful, disgraceful rumor, and they'll justify it like it's okay, or to be like completely against it. I love it.
Mate, I love it. And on a serious topic of conspiracy, we've got to remember a lot of the players watch, hear, read everything you do. I have heard some rather ridiculous rumours about Williamson this week, which always seems to happen. And I think one of the negatives, though, even though we have a bit of fun when it's something ridiculous, like bikies go and watch training to make sure they get their money for the 30 disposal bet Jaden Stevenson's put on at the weekend. What are your thoughts on Tom Williamson, Michael asks? I genuinely have strong views on this, that if it is mental health, and we've got to speculate, I suppose, in a way, reading between the lines, that it is because that's what he originally took some leave for. I'm all for it, because honestly, life's too short to do something that makes you miserable. And these conspiracy theories, obviously, they put you in the target's eye, because a lot of them are quite nasty as well, aren't they? Some of them are funny, but when you're going into personal details about relationships, affairs, and it's not true, it can be quite damaging for players.
Yeah, look, my thoughts on the Tom Williamson thing. First of all, my first reaction was sad, and hope he's okay. My immediate reaction is exactly what you said. I mean, why can't it simply be? Why does it have to be a theory or a conspiracy? Why can't it simply be a young man just not enjoying his job, so he wants to do something else? Why can't it be that? And if it is that, all fair credit to him, because you know what? There are people stuck in jobs. Hands up. I'm stuck in a job that I can't stand, but I can't do anything else. You know, there's nothing else I know what to do. I wish I could have made a decision that Tom Williamson made in my early 20s, because if that's the decision, and all power to him, and I hope he's okay. And you know what? Like you said, life's too short. In 10 years' time, when he's doing something he loves, who cares? Who cares? You know,
Mate,
he's going
to
live a happy life.
When the AFL pick us up for a show, because let's be honest, the AFL media is dog shit. You won't have to do it anymore. We'll have a big couch in a big studio.
Yes. I won't have to have my backdrop. Yeah.
Hey, and then people will be able to write rumours about you and me, Fazz.
Yes, well, yeah, no, I already get enough of those when parents catch me at the bottle-os and stuff. So,
tell you what, Jai, some of the players could be, as you said earlier, one of the gunmen on the grassy knoll. I have heard David Noble is one of the is actually wanted in connection with JFK's murder, and that leads us to my favourite part of the week. And everyone in chat, give us your unpopular opinions. Faz, what have you got for me that's going to make you universally hated this week?
All right. I hope Carlton people are listening, Carlton supporters. All right. I love yous all. I love Carlton. I love the supporters. But my unpopular opinion is something you all need to hear, and you listen to me. Not every post a Herald Sun or a media or a journalist or people make about another club or another player is a direct swipe at Carlton. All right. I am so sick of seeing Nick Dacos had a wonderful game and every single comment being, oh, what about Sam Walsh? What about Sam Walsh? Get it over it. It is like not every single post is a direct swipe or a direct backhand to Carlton. Okay, not everyone spends 24 hours a day, 7 days a week worrying about, oh, how can I piss off Carlton supporters? All right, and you know what? I'm getting pissed off because every time I go to click on a news story about another club, it's always like, oh, what about Carlton? What about Carlton? It's made the joke. Geez, big game, Richmond West Coast on Sunday. You know, this could have ramifications for finals. And then the comment straight away is, oh yeah, but Carlton might not be able to beat West Coast next week. Why? Like, what? It's got nothing to do with Carlton. So I love yous all. I love Carlton, but just know that not every single thing posted on Twitter is a direct backhand at Carlton or their players.
I've got to agree. I do think this is also an AFL issue because if you go through, you do see other clubs bring it in as well. But I've got to admit, being on Twitter as much as you, I do feel sorry when the AFL media actually produce a good article. That I did see one the other day with Freo in a perfect opportunity for late season form. And it was literally a specific article about the depth, what they've done, Nat 5 coming back in. And all the comments were, no mention of Carlton missing 6 of their best 22. And I'm like, yeah, but imagine how bad that would be an article if they got you in with Fremantle and then just talked about Carlton for about 20 minutes. I mean, surprise.
It's bizarre. It's so bizarre. It's like, you know, the Melbourne, no, it was the Brisbane Bulldogs game. Who's going to kick more goals out of Danaher and Norton? Was this Channel 7 Twitter post, and the comments were, "I'd take Harry Mackay." But like, it's not even the question. Like, it absolutely blows my mind. You know, who's a better defender, Darcy Moore or Harris Andrews? Oh, Jacob Wiedering. Like, well, you know, I get it, I understand it. We love our club, we love our players, but it's not always what you think it is. Sometimes nothing is nothing. You know.
Mate, I could not agree more with you because me personally, when that, I think that's a sign of a weak club to me because I think if you having defenders, I always look at like when Rangers were good and the press hate Rangers because of the sectarian violence. Your comeback is who won the fucking title last year, mate? I mean, who's got 50 odd? Who's got 55 titles in the cabinet? I mean, so that's our reply. The arrogance of okay, cool.
It's that need.
It's that
need for validation.
Winger. Yeah, do you know what I mean? You've got the best winger. Who gives a shit? We've just won the title.
Yeah, it's that need for validation, and to be honest, one of the biggest cringiest things I always hear is when Carlton were crap, was the response was like, yeah, but we've won 16 flags. I'm like, oh, it cringes me to no end because no one gives 2 squirts a piss about our 16 flags. No one except for Carlton, right? I'm telling you now. Like, I'm 32 years old. I was 5 when we won 9. Like, I've only seen 1 flag. I could not care less about the other 15. It's just it blows my mind. Like, it is such a need for validation argument, and at the end of the day, like, I can't get over it. Like, it's a weak thing. Leave that to Richmond supporters who constantly have their need to validate that they're one of the better teams going around or have one of the better teams in the modern era. Leave that to them. We don't need that. Let's just do what we do. And I'm sorry, like, I obviously do care about our history and our 16 flags, but I don't need to bring it up every time someone says, "Oh, Carlton aren't going to play finals this year." Oh yeah, but we've got 16 flags. You don't need to bring it up. It's just, like I said, I do care, but it's
Mate, I agree with you. I actually like that unpopular opinion. I can get behind that. We've got some great ones in the chat. Lockie Reed, I like this one. Always is our best small forward. I get behind that. Charlie Kernow thought PM, great name. Even though he's a Dundee's fan, he's just said that he owns Scotland. Rankine, he's better than Ginnivan. Ben will disagree with you. He says Jack Ginnivan's the best. Bugs Bell, Nick Dacos. We know I've got a lot of love for Nick Dacos.
Oh, he's a phenomenal.
I'm a little bit in love.
Phenomenal.
A little bit in love, I'll be honest. Do you know what I mean? I'm a little bit in love. Mate, away the Jers, mate. You know it. My unpopular opinion is this, right? The AFL media team of ex-players are the least educated and uninformed about the sport they play, that they shouldn't even be pundits of it. And that might be harsh, but I actually think that the more I listen to them, the more I think they actually don't have a Scooby, and they're not there to educate or inform. They're there just to collect a paycheck, because some of these articles are so poorly researched. One of them I wanted to go through was Kane Corns, who did an article on Walsh and was comparing him to players that were rated elite for stats, but not actually understanding that the Champs Data version of elite is against what position you play. So Nick Dacos, currently in Champs Data, is rated as a halfback, even though he's a midfielder. He started at halfback for Collingwood this year. So his stats for contested ball are very, very our top end of elite, because a halfback doesn't get much contested ball. And him saying, but Nick Dacos is killing him on contested ball because he's elite. Yeah. Walsh is just above average. You actually look at the number, Walsh is ahead numerically. It's just because of that rating he's looked at. And I was reading it and going, how does he not know how Champs Data ranks it?
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing about Champion Data, is because the players are grouped in their positions. So you talk about, like, Matt Owens is a perfect example. He's like the number one. He's elite for tackling tackling inside 50. But compare him, if you're going to compare his tackle numbers to a midfielder, it's polar opposite, because he's ranked with the forwards. You're so right. So comparing a Walsh to a Dacos, you can't, because they're different positions. Nothing bugs me more than when experts or people compare two players who could not be more different. So yeah,
mate, I'm with you. And tell you what, we've got 10 minutes left. Throw in your questions for randomness. We'll love to answer them. But I do want to go on the Dacos Walsh thing, a little bit on that. I agree with Bugsbell and yourself, two different players. Like Jeff says, do they rely on Champs Data too much? I don't think they do, because I think data now is a huge thing, and it's something that Brian Cook mentioned a lot. It's something that it shocked me. Brian Cook was excited. Carlton this week have made an algorithm for contracts based on performance. And I'm like, I actually made that the first day I was at work, because I was shocked our work didn't do performance reviews based on KPIs and then had a system to work out what pay reviews fair. I couldn't believe that it's taken them all season to make, and the fact they haven't had one, and someone's just there going, you're 600, 420 for you, 800. Like, surely you've got a system. But the Nick Dacos, there's been a lot of talk, and I'd love chat's thing. Nick Dacos versus Walsh. Now, I want to be fair here, because Walsh is in my opinion, Walsh is the best player in the last 20 years in terms of all-round player. When Dacos came through the draft, I remember using this phrase, which Swoop Luke misquoted me on and said, Pom said he's the best player ever. I didn't say that. I said Nick Dacos is the best user and attacking threat in the AFL as a midfielder I've ever seen, and the guy will be a superstar. I don't think you compare them. I think, for me, it's like comparing Eddie Betts and Gary Ablett Jr., right? Do you know what I mean? Both would be walk-up starts in your team. However, both wouldn't play each other's role. However, I do love them, and I think we are privileged, especially looking at the guys coming through. Ashcroft this year, we are in a dynasty of AFL. A dynasty of AFL where we are going to be seeing the Locketts, the Gary Ablett Seniors, the Judds, the Gary Ablett Juniors. Again, we're going to have this generation 2020 to 2030 we'll talk about it 100 years from now.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And that's the exciting part. So, yeah. So what about some of these questions?
Do you think Ed Kerno has a place in our best 22?
It's a good question. I think the immediate answer is you'd hope we've moved past that, but I definitely think there's a role for him to play. I'm thinking big final, big game. You know, why not? You always hear these folklore tales about a player comes in and does a job. Why not? We play Melbourne in a big final, bring him in and playing him on Oliver. I can see it happening. You know, or you know, if we're playing St Kilda again, for example, bring him in and playing him half forward, locking down on Sinclair. I don't know. There could be a spot for him. If I'm writing out best player to 22nd best player, I don't think he's in that our best 22. But I don't think Nick Duigan of 2013. I think Ed Kerno's got a Nick Duigan game in him.
Yeah. Do you want to hear an interesting pom stat? Right, and I had this debate with a good mate of mine who was a big fan of Adam Chera, right? And I remember saying I would have held out on pick 6 for him. And I remember getting a lot of abuse from it. And everyone kept using this phrase, which I fucking hate. The guy's class. And I'm like, define class. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And why do I pay for it? However, if you look at Chera is the 4th rotation, right? So you look at all the 4th rotations at Carlton Football Club. Ed Kerno is superior in every stat as a 4th rotation, which he was last year for Carlton, in Adam Chera, other than kicking disposals, kicking efficiency, and he had double the amount of kicks per game almost. So theoretically, Ed Kerno isn't as bad as a lot of people I think he is. And I'm not saying Kerno's better than Chera. I think Chera's a lot better and he hasn't shown it yet for Carlton. However, I think he's still got a role to play.
Yeah, well, look, I've done something a little bit sneaky. As people know, I am on holidays at the moment. My kids are kind of looking after themselves, I guess. And I watched actually our wins from last year to try and compare how we're winning and if it's any different to our wins from this year. And I got to be honest, in all our wins last year, Ed Kerno was fantastic. He was fantastic. He actually stood out in a lot of our wins, kicking goals, you know, contested possession. So I don't know. I did get slaughtered on Twitter for saying I look forward to seeing him back, but hey, what else is new?
Hey, well, it wouldn't be like you, would it? Hey, do you know what I mean? Be shocked. Tell you what, this is a great one. We'll do this as a team in chat. We'll go through Carlton's delisted. We'll go throughout the out of contract players. We'll make it fair. So first one, Caleb Marchbank.
Unpopular opinion? You give him another year. But if he keeps getting injured,
I'm delisting him.
Yeah. I wanted to say it, but I think how far can you go? How far can you go? You know, yeah. See how he comes back from this one.
He is Connors keeping or delisting?
For me, Cunningham, he's in the same boat as Marchbank. If you can't get fit, you can't play. So I'm saying I don't think you can keep both of them. I think one of them has to go. I'm happy to keep one for another year, but one of them has to go.
I was going to say, I've kept Connors, but I think that's bias because I like him.
Yeah. One of them has to go. Yeah.
Ed Kerno.
I would say this. I'd say retire.
Yeah, I'd like to see him around the VFL though. I really would like him as a role model because of how hard he's worked.
Assistant coach to the VFL.
Yeah, I'd love him on like a playing deal. Playing deal so he can play with them, teach them the training efforts, maximize. Next guy. Now, this is going to surprise many people. Jack Nooms. I'd actually delist Jack Nooms. And we know I am the #1 ticket holder. There's me and Jack Nooms' mum, right? In his favourite. But I actually think it's time someone else takes that mantle of the bit part across the line. And I personally would say I like Noons, but if these players can't do what Noons can do, I'd question it. So I'd like next year to be forced to
Noons,
really put a player in.
I'm delisting Noons, but rookieing him.
Yeah, that's fair.
With the assumption that we're not going to get another winger in. Yeah. If we get another winger in, then okay, no worries. But I'm delisting him and re-rookieing him. I think that so much time spent on this rookie draft, it never, I think, yeah, it's handy to have someone. Yeah, yeah.
Cheat the system. Cheat the system. Next guy up, Jordan Boyd. Well, we'll do two. Jordan Boyd and Josh Honey. I'm keeping.
Keeping both. Yeah, for sure.
Keeping them. Lachlan Fogarty. I'll buy him off.
Yep. Delisted for me.
Stocker.
I like him. I like him too.
I like Fog as well, but Stocker I'd keep.
Yeah, Stocker.
He's not trading him, is he?
Yeah, keep him. But just fix your kicking up, Liam.
Lockie O'Brien I'd keep.
Keep. Yeah.
I love it. Luke Parks, I'd get rid of him.
Yeah. Delisted. Yeah.
Matt Cottrell. There was a controversial opinion, which I actually think 7 is a good opinion. I'd say Cottrell would be probably close to top 10 performers this year for impact per game.
I agree. Keep an eye out on the best and fairest night for Cottrell. Not to win it, but to be top 10.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So we're keeping Cottrell, obviously, because we like him. Yeah. Matty Owens, I'm guessing we keep him.
Keep.
Do you know what I mean? Sam Durden and Oscar McDonald. I think you can only keep one.
Keep Durden. And
the back
Oscar.
of McDonald.
Yeah.
Tom Williams
2 years in a row.
Yeah. And Will Hayes and Will Setterfield. I personally keep them for the depth because we've got rid of some other tosh. What would you do?
I would keep one of them, and I would see if we can do the same thing I said with Nunes, delist and rookie the other. Whether or not, I think Hayes is already a rookie anyway, isn't he? So I guess if you can keep Hayes on the rookie list, great, and then keep Setterfield. But look, this is all assuming we can't get anyone else. If we're able to get, like a George Hewitt type free agent midfielder in, for example, then that might spell the end for someone like Setterfield. But I am worried, like what you said, if you're going to get rid of a Fogarty and a Nunes and all that, you can't get rid of everyone. So it comes down to ranking the players. Who would you rather have on your list out of a Fogarty, Setterfield, Ed Curnow, Jack Nunes? That's how it, or Hayes, because you can't just get rid of them all. Otherwise, you're going to be up shit creek.
I just love a cull. What can I say? I've got my flat cap on. I'm ready to do business. Michael Bennett asks a great question for us to finish with.
Yep.
What's your 3 best teams of the modern era?
When does the modern era start?
Modern era. So we'll do 3 players that stand out and 3 teams that stand out.
Yeah. From 2000? You say that, or?
Yeah, that's probably fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, last 22 years, yeah. So just off the top of my head, the teams, I would say Brisbane to me are the number 1 team that in that 22 years. I'd say Geelong would be number 2, and Hawthorn number 3. I will say this though, if you had said 99 onwards, I would have thrown Essendon in at number 3, despite the fact they only won 1 flag. I still stand by that 99, 2000, 2001 Essendon team. Best group of players I think I've ever seen. They just couldn't win the flags. So for me, it's Brisbane, Geelong at 2, and who did I say? Hawthorn at 3.
Mate, I have never seen them live, but I have seen Richmond and Brisbane in the early noughties. I've got to have them in there. I've got to go recent though. I enjoyed the Hawthorn mid-noughties team when I first came over here. Ruthless, efficient. I loved everything about them. And the 2017 Richmond, for me, was was a fairy tale in the terms of probably something Carlton are trying to emulate, a team that probably always let themselves down, even though they were hyped up the 2 years before. And that final series was just potent, wasn't it? I never forget when they lost that game and then they played Fremantle, beat them by over 100. And it was David King, incidentally, who wrote the article, Richmond have got the jitters, which he's wrote one about Carlton this week, about the jitters. Yeah. And they went to Perth Domain Stadium, beat Fremantle by 100 and never looked back. And I remember it was Dustin Martin, which I'm looking at Cripper this week. People have forgotten about him, saying, oh, as Dustin Martin, he's not done much. He had 30 touches that day, 2 goals, tore Fremantle apart.
Yeah,
I'd say that's there. And Dustin Martin would definitely be that 2017 Martin. I don't think I've seen many better players with my own eyes live than 2017 finals Martin.
No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And that brings to the players. I'll go my 3 players. I'll go backwards now. I'll go 3-1. And people are going to shoot me because I actually didn't have Judd in there. But my 3 best players, starting at 3 to my best player in the modern era that I've seen, Dustin Martin, I think, 100%. He's just a phenomenal footballer. Number 2 would be Gary Ablett Jr., obviously. And to me, my number 1 is, I have had arguments with people of an older generation, my dad especially, about this player. And I genuinely believe this player that I'm about to say is not just the best player in the modern era. I think he's the best player of all time. Certainly the best player that I've ever seen, but I certainly the best player of all time. That's Buddy Franklin, 100%.
Mate, I like it. I like it. Just to make George feel better as well, I would trade Plowman just for you, George, as well. I wouldn't delist him because I think there's some value there, but I do think Carlton can move on with Kemp and McGovern there. My 3, Martin would be in there, no particular order. Gary Ablett Jr. for me. It was the first big football expense I ever had, was getting his match-worn Gold Coast jersey. It was the first money I ever spent on this game, was getting his signed Guernsey. And this will surprise people because I love players like this. It's why George Hewitt was in my votes this week in the St Kilda game. Selfless game. Sam Mitchell, I think,
great call.
Most underrated footballer of all time. Scott Pendlebury would also be in that category as well, but Mitchell purely for the winning, because he won a lot as well. Absolute sensational. Like, for me, he was the engine of that Hawthorn midfield, and I think Hewitt plays that role for Carlton. He'll be the guy that everyone forgets about when Cripps wins a flag, Walsh wins a flag. I love them type of players, them selfless players.
Yeah. Great call. Great call.
Got some good ones here, though. We've got Cooter from Buckspell.
Yeah. Scott Pendlebury's a great call.
Scott Pendlebury. Lockie's brought Bootsma in. Tell you what, excellent sex game from him. Pendles. Pendles twice. So good. He named Buddy and Dusty.
Yeah, I love
Mitchell's a poor man's Greg Williams. Jesus. I wasn't here, unfortunately, for old Diesel, I'm afraid, but lovely man to speak to. Got some good ones there. We got some brilliant ones. We're over schedule because me and young Fazz talk shit for weeks. But thank you very much, guys. I really enjoyed that. It was good fun as always.
Always. It's an absolute pleasure. And same time next week, yeah?
Mate, same place, same bat channel.
I'll find a different room.
We'll find out where Fazz is next week. He's changing rooms on us. But let us know just before we go in your score predictions for Carlton West Coast, Fazz.
Blues by 47.
Fucking hell, he's going for it. I'm going to go Carlton 107.
Points.
Eagles 77.
5 goals, like that.
Do you know what I mean? There you are. I think we'll match Richmond. I think it won't be a straightforward, but I think we'll get the job done. Thank you very much. Tune in tomorrow. I am on the Blue Abroad show because I whore myself out like Kim Kardashian in the early noughties. I will be doing the teams with Young Let Dog and also live on the Saturday. And football season is coming up, so stay tuned for that because you'll see more of me and Fazz in the middle of the night watching soccer at stupid hours for 0-0 draws.
Excellent. No worries. Have a good one, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.